Hey all, it's Starzy and today we are doing the end of the year book tag. I think I'm technically doing this late for when it's intended to be done, even though it's close to the end of the year now. But I've seen a bunch of people doing this video, so I decided to do it too, in the name of actually being here to show my face. So let's talk about some books. The first prompt of this tag is, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? This is not a good way to start this video because I've been avoiding talking about this book because the author has just been showing himself to be more and more of a problem, to be honest. But Emperor of the Vampire by J. Kristoff, having loved Nevernight and loving vampires, I did pre-order this book before a lot of stuff was brought to my attention. So I have it, and I did start reading it when I got it, which, when did it come out? Like September? And it's December now. So that's showing you how long it's taking me to read it. I think I'm like 200 pages in, but the thing of it is I have already had a lot of problems with it. But I do want to finish it, mostly just so that it can stop staring at me from my bedside table and I can put it behind me. There are some things that have come up in the past like 50 to 100 pages that show promising that it's not going to be like a torturous read necessarily, but just, yeah, the first 100 pages alone I had so many problems with, especially in terms of like the way women were being presented in the story. A scene that particularly stood out to me was a female vampire, like this one single scene. Like, I need to clarify that this was a single scene with no context before or after it, just a random scene he was apparently telling, because if you don't know anything about this book, we're following a character who's like telling his life story, basically. So a scene with no context was a female vampire coming into his room, giving him oral, biting him so that she was taking in both liquids at once, and then leaving. That was the entire scene, no context to anything before or after that was told. So I don't know why it was even included. And it was kind of just the cherry on top in terms of the representation of the female characters, because she was clearly just there for sex. I mean, I can kind of assume who she was and what some of the context was meant to be just based on that, but still, no. So I feel like this book's kind of just, it's feeling a bit like it's including swearing and sex just for the sake of it, rather than it actually serving a genuine purpose within the book. Look, I want to finish it so that I can put it behind me, basically, and because it's just been sitting on my bedside table for months. But don't be surprised if you end up with a rant review from me, because yeah, the first 100 pages alone had me sending a mini rant to Ellie. So okay, moving on from that, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? First of all, I am in the Southern Hemisphere, so it has not been autumn here for quite some time. We were in spring and we are now in summer. So that's not necessarily relevant to me, but I did just read It Happened One Summer, since, yeah, I've just moved into summer, and that was a romance that featured a, like, socialite who was cut off and sent to live in this little town that her parents were originally from, and she meets a kind of sullen fisherman there, and it's their romance, which was cute enough. I am also currently reading In a Holidays, which seasonally does not fit, considering, again, I'm in summer, but in terms of the time of year, it's a Christmassy romance, which I think involves our main character repeating a day over and over again because she like kisses the wrong guy or something. I don't know. I've read like the first chapter, so I also have this to read. Is there a new release you're still waiting for? In terms of anything releasing this year, not really that I can think of. It's almost the end of the year now. The only new release that I'm particularly like, please can I have it in my hands as soon as possible, I don't think comes out until like May or June next year, but that's the third book in the Prison Healer series, which I can't remember what it's called. But the way the second book ended when I read it this year, I'm still not over it, and I would like things resolved, please. That is a YA fantasy series that is the most invested I have been in a YA fantasy series in a long time. What are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? I would kind of like to read, what have I read? I've only read the first 2 volumes of this, so I would kind of like to read, what do I have here, 3 to 6 of Sailor Moon, Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon, the manga, just because these technically belong to my little sibling. So I'd really like to finish them just so that I can return them. Technically there's 4 of those, but I'm not really helping myself there because libraries are finally open again here, and so I went and got a big stack of books from the library. So I also have this to see how many I can get through in December. I did finish Space Opera yesterday, so I've read one of them, but Inner Holidays, which I've just mentioned, Slasher Girls and Monster Boys, which I think is like YA horror short story collection with different authors. The Wolf of Oren-Yaro, which is an adult fantasy that I saw a bunch of people talking about a while back. I also have Cardcaptor Sakura, along with Sailor Moon, which is another very nostalgic show from my childhood, along with Sailor Moon. It was another anime I watched quite a lot, and this is the first volume of that manga. Then there's 2 comic books here, Sleepless, which is a fantasy comic book I know nothing about. I just saw it at the library, so picked it up, and then this is a very DC rebirth holiday, so some Christmassy DC comic book, I don't know. So I guess that's basically my entire December TBR that I've just showed you. I generally don't really set TBRs, but when I get books from the library, I try to get through them all. I don't always get through them all, but that's what I currently have on hand. Is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? Definitely not going to be Empire of the Vampire. Even those books I got from the library, I don't think there's anything that I'm gonna like fall in love with. I'm not really feeling those vibes from it. I mean, Sailor Moon I'm nostalgic for. The only other book I have that I have pretty high hopes for, this is my TBR shelf back here, House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland, which is a YA horror that I did hear good things about earlier this year. And so I have kind of high hopes for this because I love horror and because I did hear good things. But I don't know, looking at that pile of books, I don't know whether I'm necessarily going to be getting to this before the end of the year though, even though I've had it on my shelf for months now. But yeah, overall, I've had a pretty average reading year. Like, majority of what I've read, I think I've rated around 3 stars. So I've kind of felt just okay about a lot of things. So at this point, I don't really have high hopes anymore, I guess. Have you already started making reading plans for 2021 is the last prompt of this tag. And I haven't thought too much about it. As I said, I'm not someone who really sets TBRs particularly. I tend to just kind of go with what I'm feeling. I would like to, yeah, these are my TBR shelves up here, and I would like to thin them out a little bit. So I would, I would like to actually read more things that I physically own already. Otherwise, the only reading plan that I specifically have at the moment is, well, I guess co-hosting a readathon kind of fits into that as well, because in January I will be helping to co-host a readathon. I think by the time this video goes up, the announcement for the readathon will have already gone up, but in case it hasn't, I will link it down below when it has. But yeah, so I'm helping to co-host a friend's readathon in January, which the behind the scenes has already been pretty chaotic. But in terms of what I'm actually reading, the only thing I have specific plans about is I might be reading a friend's favorite books 1 month next year, because I've always wanted to do those videos, you know, the reading someone's favorite books type of videos, and I've been kind of planning to do those for quite some time, and so I already have plans to do at least one of those next year, potentially more. We'll see how it goes, but that is the only thing I'm intentionally planning at the moment. So there's a kind of sneaky peek for that. They already know who they are. So, but yeah, that's gonna be it for the end of the year book tag. Short and sweet, because I tried to cut myself off from just spending half the video ranting about one book that I'm still gonna make myself finish. Let me know what some of your plans are for the end of 2021 or for the start of 2022 even, in terms of reading plans. What's a book that you're really excited to read? I do not have high hopes for how many of these books I will actually get through this month, especially because December's always really busy, but I have lots of options, at least, of things to read. But yeah, say hi in the comments or leave an emoji. That's gonna be it from me today, so stay safe, stay educated, and Starzy out.